The system and our extension will really give you a lot of the tidbits about what any listing on Amazon is doing, right? In terms of volume, its BSR ranks, uh, how much revenue we think they're making, how often are they changing price, how optimized is their content. It gives you everything you need to know about a listing on a competitive edge standpoint, so you can start to make some strategic decisions yourself.
Hello. Welcome everyone to another Trellis Live. My name is Ali Bawel. I am the Chief Evangelist here at Trellis. Today is going to be a really fun one. I brought someone else from the team here at Trellis, intelligent young man, talented young man, and I'm going to keep saying young man while I bring his face up here.
Welcome.
Teja, how are you? Thanks for joining us, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Ali. Always a pleasure to have these chats with you, man. Looking forward to this one. It's going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one. I feel like we always start off with like, this is going to be a good one. And I think it really kind of speaks to the excitement that we have around these topics, like, and just helping brands, man. Like you work with so many brands on a day over day basis. Like why even come here? Why talk to us today?
I think it's because I get so much perspective, right? Every brand tells me a different story, a different problem. I was on one just this morning talking to a brand, and they had a problem with profits and margins and whatnot. And it's like, it's the value of dynamic pricing across ecom, right? How do we help these brands manage their profit margins?
That's it. I think you nailed it. And we're gonna bring it up right away here, but that's sufficiently what we want to talk about today, right? That looking across the spectrum of e-commerce, across channels, whether it be Amazon or Walmart, dynamic pricing has a substantial impact. And when we actually dive into it, and get into the content of it, but let's take a step and understand that there are a ton of price changes that already happen on Amazon. Like 2.5 million. It's like, Tata, you see this within our own brands, obviously the ones that are working on dynamic pricing, but you see this within like competitors or looking at market research. Is this true?
100%, right? Every brand is making so many price changes. And in today's times, honestly, you have to. If you're not making those price changes, I feel like you're losing on Amazon with new fees, competitors, new products. It's just, you always got to be reactive to a certain extent, but DP is a way to be proactive about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of want to break that down, right? Like we know Amazon, when they're a vendor, or when they actually have like the vendor side of it, and like they'll change prices all the time, right? They're always playing with that, and making sure that they're winning, and they're doing that. And like there's like, what do they really know as a result? But when we start breaking it down, like, and saying, okay, well, let's look at what does price actually impact? Why are there so many different price changes? And when you and I were like talking about this, and we keep adding more and more things to this as time goes on, because there's more that it impacts on a day over day basis. Like talk to me about what your perspective on this.
It honestly, it impacts all of those things and more, right? If you think about it, the lower the price you have, potentially that improves your click-through rates, right? You're selling more, you're getting more clicks, it's more attractive to the consumer. But at the same time, the more price friendly it is, the higher likely they're going to buy your product, right? Improves your conversion rate. Now, if your conversion rate's better, that's going to impact your advertising, and your ACoS metrics will be better because you're selling more for less ad spend, right? But now increasing and decreasing price can also be a variable of controlling your inventory turnover rates, how well you're selling through, especially with the new fee Amazon introduced. You always have to have a certain amount of inventory that you're able to sell through, right? You don't want to be running too low, right? So you can use a way as increase your price as you come through closer to that deadline, and improve your sell-through rates and whatnot as a whole, right? So control your volume, maintain buy box as much as possible with resellers coming in and third-party sellers, or just as a whole, making sure you have buy box so you can sell to begin with. Now, doing all of this net, at the end of the day, the biggest variable that impacts the most is your profit, right? So that's always going to be the true impact is always going to trickle down to that, and that's all of that matters.
And you know, this is about me. That's all I talk about. It's all I care about. It's all I want brands to care
about.
Yeah, but it's profit at 10 times over, right? Right. I think it was back at BDSS. We did a whole talk on the sell-through rate. The last time that we had you on here is Prime Day even profitable, right?
Exactly.
price is a big factor in all of these things, right? It really helps and drives whether or not you're going to be successful, and whether or not these KPIs, which arguably are some of the most important KPIs that you're looking at on a day over day basis, are moving in the right direction, right, to that point. And so when we break this down, and we've talked about this before, and I've talked about this in different ones as well, but we're going to reintroduce it because we want everyone to understand really what is the crux of it. How do we figure out what the right price is? Right. And when we break that down, we think about what that is, it comes back to the same two principles that we talk about, the same two models that we look at. And it's really the price elasticity of demand and profit sensitivity, right? It's knowing these two things, right? And so Teja, if I give you, I'll throw up the formula here, price elasticity of demand, but talk to me about that. Talk to me about what this is.
At the end of the day, figuring out your price elasticity is going to really, what we're trying to do is what happens as you change these price, right? As a percent change in price, whether you're increasing your price, as you're decreasing your price. If you, simple economics, right? As you think about it, you're increasing your price, you expect people to buy less over time. As you decrease your price, you're going to see more volume, right? So this allows you to measure what that demand over price looks like, which is exactly what that calculation is, right? The percent change in demand over the percent change in price. Really figure out what does that demand curve look like for you.
Yeah. And that's the interesting part, right? Like it's really just the base element of this is like the number of units you sell at X price.
Correct.
X -2 price, or X -5 or +5 or +2 or whatever, which way you want to look at it. And at this point, every Amazon seller is like a pro Excel wizard here. And if you aren't, ChatGPT, you can get the formulas that you need to be really good at Excel as well. But let's hit profit sensitivity as well. What's this one all about? What's the difference between this and
it's the same thing, right? As let's say you're decreasing your price and you're selling more units, what you're giving up is on margin percentage. But the question is, are you selling enough units to make more profit, right? And vice versa. If you sell and increase your price, if you sell less, yes, your margin's higher, but you're probably not selling enough units, and so you may have less profit, right? So the profit sensitivity is going to really figure out what does that profit curve look like for you, right? As your price and profit percentages are changing, what is going to be the right profit point for you at the end of the day?
Yeah, and so between the first one where you have the relationship of the number of units you'll sell at the price, and this one, profit sensitivity, really being about the profit you'll make at various different price points, you start getting a really full picture and understanding, and whether you're allowed, like it allows you to be a bit more predictable, allows you to forecast, but it gives you that full picture of at X, if I sell X number of units, I'll have Y profit, and this is what my price is at every single point, with your anchor being that price, right? Like it's a pretty strong data set for you to have, even when you want a coupon, when you want a promo, when you want to do any of these things, right? That if I discount by $5, what does that mean for me? How many more units will I sell? How much profit will that impact? Will I have as a result of that?
And the same thing on an advertising side, right? Depending on how much room you have on a price, that's going to dictate what your advertising budget's going to be and how much can you spend to help impact or influence that demand side of the curve, right? How many more units can you sell because of the ads, and can you still do that with Y profit?
Yeah, and I'm going to do a subtle plug here to the sell-through rate conversation that I did as well. When we push this up on YouTube, we'll actually link out to it as well. But sell-through rate is really the combination of that, right? How do I sell more units or less units, and combining advertising and pricing strategies? I digress. Coming back into it, if I have the price elasticity demand, I have the data around the profit sensitivity as well. When we actually model that out, this is what it kind of looks like, right? And again, press chart in Excel, it'll put this out for you too. But when we start looking at it, these are the kind of ways it'll be. Like you have volume on the one side here, you have profit on the other, price across the bottom. That pink little line there is your profit sensitivity, and that purple is your demand. But you get a really good picture here of all of these coming together, right? And but now what, Teja? Now that I have this data, now put this together, what is that? How am I getting my right price from here?
I think the best way to look at it is really the intersection between that demand line and the profit line, right? And that's really going to tell you your optimal price, right? And that's going to be where you're able to maximize your profit as much as possible within a stable and steady demand that you're still selling enough units, but you're maximizing your profit, right? It's that intersection. And that's what this gives you, right? Is having these two models, combining them together, now you have the optimal price. Imagine now having that across all your product lines.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, right? I know that because if I move one way or the other, I essentially have either less profit or less volume, right? Like as I go on either side of that. But knowing that the next layer on top of this, and this is probably the part that really helps in terms of looking at it in market, and we'll go into that as well. But it's starting to understand what is your best price, right? And that best price is that range. It's that, okay, well, if I, depending on what I want, if I want, I'm trying to increase my BSR, or I want to increase and sell more units, I'm willing to forego some profit there as well. Well, where does that line take me? And you can kind of see where that would be on the left side there, or the inverse of that, right? I want to be more profitable. I want to have more cash in my pocket. I want to make sure that I'm making more profit per unit sold as well, and like my contribution dollars, contribution margin, all these things, you start playing a bit more on the other side. And so when you start looking at the best price is really the range around your optimal price, and that your price will hover in between to make sure that you're optimizing for the strategies you're going after, right? And we never want to go too low or too high to avoid any kind of negative impacts or negative effects. But knowing your optimal price and then figuring out the range of which is your kind of your min and max is super important, right? So you have optimal price, you have best price, and really you start saying that, well, okay, fine, this is the theory, right? Like Taser, you and I get this. We talk about this. We figure this out for brands all the time. We analyze this for brands all the time as well, right? But when we actually start saying, okay, well, how's it play out in market? Like, this is kind of what it starts looking like, right?
Exactly. And it's like you can see those oscillations and curves, right? At the end of the day, your optimal price is never going to be the same, right? Because there's just too many variables that dictates your volume, your inventory, your buy box, all of those things that price changes impacts also impacts your optimal price over time, right?
So would
Seasonality.
that mean nailed it? I was just going to ask you, would that mean seasonality, like that? Because like you're going to change your price when you're out of season
Exactly.
versus when you're in season.
Right. So seasonality is one of them. Then how much inventory do you have is going to be another of them. Then your organic rankings, how many competitors are in this landscape, right? If there's not a lot of pressure on a competitive standpoint, there's no need for you to be price conscious and start to reduce your price. You can actually capitalize on that, right? Start to increase your price over a period of time, right? Any one of those can dictate the optimal price over a period of time, allowing you to find pockets throughout the year where you can maximize that as much as possible. But vice versa, you may give up some profit, but because you're selling more units, and you have to just move top line revenue and top line volume as well, right? So really, it's just going to fluctuate throughout the year, and it's about dynamically adjusting this and getting that optimal price as much as possible.
Yeah, and to your point, doing this across multiple products in a dynamic fashion, and looking and figuring out what the optimal price is, and playing within that best price range, right? That the optimal price will always oscillate between here. And but if I'm looking at going after more profit, maybe the oscillation will stay within this kind of top half here. If I'm going after more units moved, it'll stay within the bottom half, and it'll kind of shift the optimal price up and down. And coming back to those curves we saw earlier, it's really just moving it left or right at that intersection point of your profit sensitivity and the demand curves there, right? So it's like it's really powerful to see this in market and see this play out, but more so just having that data and doing this analysis, right? Like I've said this before, always be pricing, change your price, understand what that means to your product. Don't be scared of it. It will give you more clarity and more comfort to be able to grow your business, to be able to get more profit in your pocket. But ultimately, when it comes down to e-commerce, when we start saying, okay, well, if I'm changing this on one channel, fine. But really, the whole point of figuring this out and understanding this is to know that we need to change our optimal price across multiple channels. It all has to happen at the same time, right? And like that's where dynamic pricing and leveraging automation really comes into power here. Because if you don't have that, right, like Deja, like if you and I were going to do this manually for a catalog of even 20 products, and doing this analysis on a day over day basis, changing the price then for all these products on Amazon, fine, I'll do bulk uploads and make my life a little bit easier, right? But then on Walmart as well, like it's really really busy. It's really really complex.
hours and hours of time that's going to be needed, right? Just going into, like you said, if you're not a power of Excel, then it's going to be even much longer for you, right? So being able to price and plot all these prices, but then also take into account your inventory rates, your different, really what you're having is you have 20 different Excels from different sources that control each of those different variables. And somehow
Yeah.
you need to pull all that in and connect the dots. Now imagine just doing that every day, and actually not even every day, multiple times throughout the day, every day for the next little while to pull this data. And for that all to change, whether you're going into season, out of season, how do you react on a 10 pull event, and being able to connect all those data points just becomes, it's painful, right? We did it manually for a while to figure out what is a problem, right? And it was just so hard to manage that having a platform and a system in place to automatically do all that, what I like to call grunt work, just makes your life easier because it allows you to step back and really, to your point, figuring out what should my best price range be, right? Where is my optimal price? And what do those min maxes look like for me? And allow you to control other variables where you need to be more hands on, right? Whether that's your advertising. Should I scale up or scale down on ads as my price changes, right? If a competitor is doing something, what should I do about it? Right? Making those strategic decisions is what's really going to bring more value when you have something taking care of all the rest of the work for you.
Yeah, and so like the operational efficiency is definitely there, but then there's like the actual like business efficiency by getting more profit, but allowing you to drive towards a specific strategy. But more than anything, if you do it in one channel, though, you're actually kind of impacting yourself a little bit more. And Teja, I know you, and I know you really well. I know you got an example for us.
I do. I do. Let me pull it up, actually. Let's do that.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's get out of this.
Uh, Here's a good example, actually, right? If we think about it, here's NutriCross, right? Creatine monohydrate, a consumable like product, high volume and
Wait,
whatnot.
hold on, Teja. What are you showing me here? I know what this is, but tell everyone else.
This is our Chrome extension, right? It's an easy way where the system and our extension will really give you a lot of the tidbits about what any listing on Amazon is doing, right? In terms of volume, its BSR ranks, uh, how much revenue we think they're making, how often are they changing price, how
Yeah.
optimized is their content. It gives you everything you need to know about a listing on a competitive edge standpoint, so you can start to make some strategic decisions yourself off of that.
Yeah, and for everyone's knowledge, this is free. This is, you don't have to pay for it. You can download it. I'll drop the link in here as well for everyone to see it. But really, head over to our website. You'll be able to find it. It'll be right at the top. Download the Chrome extension. It's free. You can do this analysis yourself. But Taylor, keep going here. Tell us what you're seeing from this data.
And I think let's start off with the demand side of it, right? It ties it all back to the demand elasticity models and the profit models that we were saying here, right? We've separated it out, but we can see for this product, right? Right now it's priced around 21 bucks, but we think the optimal price is 21.8 based on all the data we have here, right? And we can see as their prices and demands have changed over a period of time, the intersection between these two, where we're getting that optimal price and that optimal profit point, is at that 21.8, right? And so imagine what 80 cents will do more on a product that's priced at about $21, right? When they're selling 100K units, that's another $80,000 a month. And that's
Yeah.
pure profit that they're getting back into their business, right?
So what you're literally in here where the system will analyze it, give you the optimal price, fine. But that $80,000 is a lot of money. Like that's, again, to your point, pure profit. Fine, take off your Amazon fee, but still pure profit, right? And kind of leaving that on the table. That's super impactful. And so when I look at this, the current price is that pink line that's down both of those curves, right?
Correct.
Right.
That's the optimal price right now.
Okay. Okay. And so, and if that's where our current price is, the optimal price 21.8, like, at this volume, like that's so impactful, right? Like it's such a high amount of movement. And then really then the range would really be, if we look at this, the best price, that'd be like your low and high. That's really what the best price ranges that brands set, arguably, in terms of they've been willing to go that low, they've been willing to go as high as 29. But really finding that optimal price is really impactful and really will drive a lot of profit. right? So even if for yourself at home, you're watching this, it's like, hey, let me actually just go in and do this analysis on my own product. If you have price changes you've done before, we'll be able to give you these graphs and pull those for you. If not, do some price changes and just follow along. Just hit the Chrome extension and it'll keep going for you. And so what about over time? So now that we've seen this data, we break it down. How does that play out over time, Teja?
I think it's a good question here, right? We can see, like, if we look at it just lifetime of this product, right? Let me get rid of a bunch of variables first. These guys change price often, right? And very often, if we think about it, right? There's well over a couple hundred price changes here, right? And as much as they're doing these price changes, there's always that fallacy of Amazon doesn't like it when you make too many price changes, right? But when we look at the BSR of this product line, right, net, the BSR has actually been improving for them in a positive way. And as much as it's been improving, they've also been dynamically finding pockets here of capitalizing on better BSRs at higher price point windows where their units are also growing, right? Their business, their top line revenue is growing. And by all of these growing, it's starting to impact all the other variables as well and trickles back down to profit, right? They are making fundamentally more profit as a result of all these price changes, right? And they're dynamically doing this and making sure they're maximizing this as much as possible.
That's the impact, right? Like we remember, if you remember from earlier, we had like all these things listed out here. It's like they're arguably, better ACOS as a result of this, right? Their BSR is improving. They're making more profit. They are leaving some profit on the table though. And so if anyone knows anyone at NutriCost, call them, tell them they're leaving money on the table. But at the same time, right? Like it's more units being moved, right? And the part that was really interesting that you mentioned there was like, they're finding little pockets of time to be able to increase their price to be exceptionally profitable on those days, right? Like that's like, yeah, right. That's super interesting, right? Where they'll jump their price, find volume will go down a little bit more, but they're super profitable. And think about that time when you have like lower inventory, right? Like when I'm like not trying to get out of stock, I'm not trying to pay any low inventory fees, right? Like being able to customize and dynamically change your price to reflect that, and reflecting essentially your sell-through rate to avoid those fees, to avoid the no stock element, and making more money for the units that you do sell is ideal. Like that's the best case scenario to be in. And to do that manually, to do that on your own is very challenging. And so like a good dynamic pricing tool will actually factor that in. It'll factor in your SDR, it'll factor in the low inventory fees and the days of inventory that you have on hand. So it's like, it's super powerful. And arguably, Teja, like NutriCost is not our customer here, not a brand that we work with, but arguably they are leveraging some sort of dynamic pricing.
Yeah, it's evident here, right? With the amount of frequent changes there are, for someone to manually go in and say, look, I'm gonna increase my price from 23.5 to then 19.98 and then go back up. I gotta believe that they're using some platform here that's effectively doing this at scale for them, especially when we can see this across all their listings, not just one, right?
And so and that's got to be true. I believe that as well. And so now one of the things we said at the end there was the optimal price changes all the time, which we're seeing that play out, but it should also change across channels. It should be the same, right? Like everyone knows what happens. And if you don't know what happens, I'm about to tell you, but if you don't have the same price on multiple channels, you'll actually, like there's risk to your buy box here. But let's look at the Walmart one.
Right here's the same one here, right? In that creatine monohydrate, same unflavored, 500 servings. But on Walmart, eSupplements, which is the parent company of NutriCost, right? They've got a price at $19.98 here, right?
It's cheaper on Walmart. That's gotta be impacting them.
And actually, you raise a good point there, Ellie, right? The fact that it's $1.50 cheaper here. Let me go back to Amazon for a second. And if I look at it here, and one of those variables that we mentioned before, right, is maintaining buy box, right? And here's a good example where it actually looks like someone else seems to have buy box because they're priced at $21.37 versus, I believe, eSupplements is priced at $21.49, which is also about $1.05 higher than their Walmart side, right? So they've lost buy box, and that's actually going to hurt their business a lot, right? That's 3,500 of daily units that they're missing out on as we speak today, right now, right?
So like quick math on that. That's like what the average price right now is
20
20 what?
bucks, that's about 70K, give or take, of
80K.
sales that they've just lost out on roughly.
All,
And
all because they're not reflecting the optimal price on both channels.
exactly, right? It's
Insane.
and we know Amazon, right? And everybody, they're always scraping prices, looking at it to make sure that for them it's consumer friendly and prices are stable and uniform across the board for them to pick and choose and to buy, right? And here they're just priced more on Amazon than Walmart, and so they're losing out on business here as a result of this. But imagine you had, I'll throw a plug here, a platform like Trellis where we're actually able to mirror the price across your channels for you. So right, anytime we're changing prices based on these demand and profit models on Amazon, right? And in this world, it said price it at 21.8. Let's make sure your Walmart's also priced at 21.8, right?
And
You
and I think
don't,
that's
you don't run into the risk of losing buy box.
And I think that's the interesting part here, right? That at the end of the day, for dynamic pricing to work effectively, you need to consider all these things, right? So it's getting your price elasticity of demand, it's getting your profit sensitivity, it's charting those pieces out and making sure that you're defining what your strategy is. Am I going after more cash flow? Am I going after more units sold, whatever it may be? But then pulling all of that together and applying that across different channels, right? And so you can do this on your own. It's not that you can't. It's time consuming, it's complex, whatever. But at the very least, understanding these points for your own business will be super powerful, right? If we double down on this NutriCost example, they're losing all the daily sales right now. Doesn't matter until they change their price, right? So that was what, 70K, plus being not at the optimal price, irrespective of them using a dynamic pricing solution. They're not at the optimal price right now. So that's another 80K. And that was like what, 80K on a monthly basis. So on a daily, that's what, about 2,500 bucks,
Give or
right?
take, yeah.
So that's another 2,500 in profit on top of that. So altogether, day over day, they're losing about $72,000 a day right now. Like, and they're not losing, they're not getting, right? And that's money that you could have. That's money that could be in your pocket. And this is actually a really good. I actually love that you chose you found this one here, Teja. But it's like you're losing money. You're not getting any profit, and all because you're not actually following the base principles of what dynamic pricing is all about, where it's understanding your profit sensitivity, understanding the relationship of units sold to your price as well, and making sure that you're implementing that across multiple channels. It's super strong, and like you can see the value evidently. Like I have no other words. Like I get lost every time. I'm like, why are people not doing this?
And Ali, this is just one product, right? We just found one example here, but if I were to go digging and I look, right, I guarantee you NutriCross is probably losing buy box across multiple product lines that are on Walmart as well, but there's just price discrepancies across both, and they're losing out on sales, right?
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind it's e-commerce is shifting into an omni-channel basis now, right? With a lot of the stuff that's happening off Amazon attribution, off Amazon advertising, Prime Video, streaming TV ads, right? It's about getting traffic across the board and doing that across all channels and maintaining that brand presence across all of these is starting to become more and more important, right?
And the customer experience throughout that too, right? Like,
Exactly.
I've said this before, and we're all used to, as consumers, you leveraging Uber, flying, whatever it may be, that price changes. But what I do know is that if I open Uber on my phone or on my app, or if I look at a flight in different ways, like whether it be for Air Canada or whatever it may be, and shameless plug to Canadians, what's up? But at the same time, right? Like it's going to be the same, right? So that consistent experience is really powerful, and consistent experience for consumers is super powerful, right? And so the dynamic pricing is a really, really impactful strategy to leverage, and also just to understand for your own business to help consistently drive you profits. That's the truth, and it always will be the truth as well. And so, Teja, anything else on NutriCost here on this one here?
I think it sums it up, right? At the end of the day, we think the price should change across all channels uniformly, so you get the optimal price and the optimal profit, right? And like Ali said, if anyone knows anyone at NutriCost, please get them to change their price across their Walmart and Amazon, because they're losing out on sales right now.
That you'd be a great friend. You're just like, hey, by the way, here's a way for you to make $72,000 tomorrow, just by changing your price to match your price across Walmart and Amazon there as well. Teja, you are a champ, good sir. You are a champion of knowledge. You are a champion to our brands, a champion to the team. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for coming on here. I'm gonna get you on again. I love the live examples you bring to the table.
Always, I'd love to hop on, especially with you, Ali. You bring so much joy and pleasure working with you, man, and you're just out there, and your knowledge is unbeatable as well. It's always nice to go back and forth with you, man. Looking forward to the next one.
Appreciate it. All love from Trellis, all love in Trellis. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week. Happy Wednesday. We'll see you soon.
Take care, everyone.